Well, sitting here and hearing some foxes bark in the fields, I thought it would be... Did you hear that? Probably not. I thought it would be a good opportunity to have a short discussion about the pixel pitch that I often mention in regards to the 3D pop effect. Well, I made a list with the cameras I got, and I compared the pixel pitch ratios of these cameras and their flatness or poppiness, so to say. You see, it is a journey of finding the truth about this effect, and the more I test and the more I think about it, I come to the conclusion that it has nothing to do with all these factors. And maybe even the lens is not that important. I'm not sure yet, so don't quote me on that, but it could as well be. For example, we compared a lot of cameras so far. I used the X-T3 with two of the most poppy lenses for the system, which are the 23 1.4R and the 35 1.4R lens. XF. We see pop there, and I'm pretty sure I do in photos and in video. And I compared these lenses to the TT Artisan 25 f2 and the 35 1.4 TT Artisan. I believe that all of these lenses have pop on the Fuji X-T3, for example, but the Fuji X-T3 has a pixel pitch ratio of 3.76 micrometers. It's pretty low. It's not a mosquito. It's pretty low because I tested the Nikon D7000, and this is a sensor that is believed to be, well, pretty flat, right? So, but this Nikon D7000 has a pixel pitch ratio of 4.77. So it's a bit more. So we should have a more poppy image with a poppy lens, but I tested the D7000 with a Helios 44-2, which is itself a low element count lens, which will give a good amount of pop on the Fuji, but not on the Nikon. But the pixel pitch of the Nikon is higher. Then we tested out the A6700 with the TT Artisan f2. I think it is pretty flat. We have the 6700 right now with a very poppy lens. The king of pop for Sony is the Zeiss 55 1.8. We should see some pop, but do we? I've seen pop with the TT Artisan f2 on the Fuji, but not on the Sony, even though the pixel pitch ratio of the Sony 6700 and the Fuji X-T3 is almost identical, with 3.79 on the Sony compared to 3.76 on the Fuji. And it's the same lens, same design, everything. So it might not have anything to do with that. Let's go on. We also used the Canon 5D Mark II with a 50mm 1.4. This lens itself should not have that much pop effect. And it does not even render that good. But yet, I see a lot of this pop in the pictures I take with this camera. Of course, I do not use them for video. Boah, that was a big one. Of course, I do not use this camera for video, has no autofocus and so on, but it has a pixel pitch ratio, the 5D Mark II, of 6.4. The lens itself won't give us any of the pop that, for example, the 35 XF lens for Fuji would give us. But still, the picture on the Canon is almost as poppy. So it seems as if it is a matter of the pixel pitch. But it is not, because when we look at the A7S, it has a pixel pitch ratio of 8.45 micrometers. It's by far the largest, and I think it is the largest that exists. That's my dog. So, with this camera, it does not matter which lens you mount. You can mount the Viltrox 85, you can mount the Samyang 35mm. They all give pop not even, but the size bet is 25mm f2 gives pop 2 on this A7S. On the A6700, I do not believe it does. So, you see, apparently this is not the right path, because the pixel pitch itself will tell you almost nothing, I believe. Well, yes, more contrasty or less contrasty, and well, of course the A7S is good at low light. Sensors that are crammed with a lot of megapixels and a low pixel pitch are not that good at low light. Yes, okay. But for the tonality, well, I do not know. At least not for the 3D pop effect. In my opinion, this does not seem to matter. I think it's how the sensor is built, how it is constructed, because the D7000 has a higher pixel pitch ratio than the X-T3, but the D7000 is flat and the X-T3 isn't. I used a Nikon D800 when I was in professional photography and had an own studio. With this camera, almost every picture was flat, despite pictures taken with the Nikkor 50mm 1.8G. This lens should not give pop, but it had pop. It had a good rendition. Last year I took pictures with the D800 and the pictures had pop effect. At least I felt it. They do not have the medium format look like the A7S has. And this is due to the, well, pixel pitch, I believe. But there was pop. So it does not seem to matter whether the pixel pitch is high or low. And it even does not seem to matter whether the lens itself produces this kind of micro contrasty rendition or has a low element count, because Nikon Z 50mm 1.2, this is poppy, or it is so poppy. The pictures I saw, pretty good. The Nikon Z 40mm f2 is poppy. Should not be that poppy. So maybe it is the sensor, or maybe it is a combination of both. We will find out. I will test some other lenses on old systems, like the Thypoch Semera, for example. This lens in theory should give a tremendous amount of 3D pop. We will see how it behaves on the A6700, for example, or on the Fuji X-T3. I believe it will give us some pop on the X-T3. On the A6700, I do not think so. I believe it is not about the pixel pitch, it is about how the sensor is built. Modern sensors do not seem to have this effect, I don't know. The more recent the sensor, I believe, from my experience, the less of this effect and the less of this lens specifications will produce this image in a 3D poppy way. So what do you think? Let me know your experiences. Maybe you got some lenses that you want me to try out regarding this effect. But for me, it does not seem to matter what the pixel pitch ratio is. The look, yes, the A7S gives a medium format-like look that none of these other cameras can produce. But for the 3D pop, I do not think that this is a factor. And even when I used medium format cameras like the Mamiya RB67, with a Sekorn lens, 90mm 3.5 I believe it was, this lens in theory should not give much 3D pop, but it had so much 3D pop. Of course it depended on how you shoot the picture, right? On how you take the photo. And I believe we are going into the right direction. It is all a matter of your surroundings. It is all a matter of how dimensional you would view the scene with your own eye. If you stare at the wall, there will be no dimensionality whatsoever. How could there be? But if you see some objects in front and behind the subject, then you will think that there is some dimensionality, right? So I believe it all comes down to how the picture is taken, to how the scene is designed, so to say. We will see. I'm still convinced that the lens will contribute to that, and of course that the sensor will, but not with a pixel pitch ratio, whether it is 3.79 micrometers or 6.7 micrometers. I do not think that this will affect it very much, because when I made some test videos with the Fuji 35, well, it had pop, and the Canon 50mm 1.4 had pop too. Canon's pixel pitch ratio is higher than the Fuji's, but the Fuji still looks poppier. We will see where we get from here.